This looks like a better connection.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys are
Bernie,
good to go.
that's big time, Bernie.
Looks good,
Look
brother.
at that.
You're going to show us all up.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to SNY's Like We Never Left. I'm Sweeney Murdy. 2022 will mark the 25th anniversary of the modern Subway Series between the Yankees and Mets. And to help us look back at the early days of the city rivalry, we welcome in from the New York Yankees Hall of Famer Joe Torre, along with Bernie Williams and Jeff Nelson, and from the New York Mets, Bobby Valentine and John Franco. Joe, I want to start with you because you grew up in New York City at a time when the Subway Series was in its original form. You were actually at Don Larson's perfect game between the Yankees and Dodgers in 1956. So as the first round between the Yankees and Mets is getting set to come about in 1997, what was your level of anticipation considering your history with the original version?
Don't tell George Steinbrenner those games aren't important. I'll give you a quick example. In 96, my first year managing the Yankees, we finished spring training with the Mets, you know, the 3-game series. And George came into my office and he says, well, you got to beat these guys, you know, meaning the Mets. And I said, George, let me ask you, I was just kidding with him, obviously. I said, George, let me ask you, if you had a choice of beating the Mets 2 out of 3 or the Cleveland Indians 2 out of 3 to start the season, what would your choice be? He says, don't ask me that question. But you always felt the breath on your neck of the higher ups.
They closed down the freeways. We dressed at our own ballparks. We had motorcades that took us where the highways were closed during rush hour, going to Yankee Stadium from Shea Stadium, and not a car on the road, just our buses and these motorcades taking us to Yankee Stadium. It was absolutely incredible, the scene before the game.
Bernie, you had the misfortune of actually being injured when this first Subway Series is coming around in 97. Were you upset that you missed it? You remember all the hype leading up to it?
I do remember the hype. I remember everything that Bobby said we experienced. I mean, I share the same sentiment. It was just, wow, this is just unbelievable.
When you pull up to Yankee Stadium, all the Yankee fans giving you the #1 sign as you're pulling in. It was, and I remember a couple of players on our team mooning the Yankee fans on the bus, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was just great. I thought it was great for the city. I mean, if the players tell you that it's just another game, they're full of beans. Every player wanted to win. We wanted to beat the Yankees. I'm sure the Yankees players wanted to beat us. It was for bragging rights. But I thought it was great for this city and great for baseball.
Nelly, you had actually pitched in both games of a doubleheader the day before this first Subway Series game. So you were down for the count for a couple of days, but you had a great seat in the Yankee bullpen, I imagine, watching the first Yankees-Mets game.
I think as a player, I know what Bertie felt, but we knew that Mr. Steinbrenner wanted to win these games, and it was a must win. It seemed like there was 3 teams that you had to beat. That was the Tampa Rays because he lived down there. You had to beat the Red Sox, and now you had to beat the Mets. And, it was just exciting because the city got really excited. You watched the news programs, and you had 2 different houses. One house was a Yankee fan, and their neighbor was a Met fan.
Bobby, the Yankees are all talking about the pressure to beat the Mets, and these guys are world champions coming off the 96 season. Was there similar pressure from your ownership and from your fan base, you think, to beat the Yankees?
Oh, absolutely. And that team in particular was kind of moving on up, starting to get a feel that they were pretty good. My gosh, I mean, we had Dave Mlicki out in the mound. And I was second guessed from spring training when people would look and see who was going to start that game. And they would say, you're not really going to pitch Mlicki, are you? You're not pitching Dave Mlicki, are you? And I'll be darned if he doesn't throw a shutout. We thought we were on top of the world, and we really thought maybe Steinbrenner was going to sell the team the next day. I mean, we thought we did it in that one game.
I think the Subway Series really took off in 1999 because you had 2 series, one at each stadium, And both teams are postseason contenders, actually did make the postseason. And you had a dream for the first time in a long time that these two teams could meet in the World Series. This is the first full year with Mike Piazza on board. This is a scary lineup to pitch to, isn't it?
You know, I remember giving up the home run to him in the World Series, which I don't know how he hit that ball. It was a fastball on his knuckles, and he winds up hitting it off the foul pole at Yankee Stadium. But no, they were tough. They were a tough lineup. You know, it was, you know, with the Yankees, we had so much from winning and having Joe as a manager, we had so much confidence. And you know, even though you had that added pressure from either the media, the fans, or Mr. Steinbrenner, you still, I think as a player, you still felt that you could win every game.
John, that first series in '99 had a lot of drama attached to it, and the big shakeup happened with the Mets. 3 coaches get let go, and Bobby, I'll let you weigh in on this, but from a player's perspective, Johnny, what you guys had just dropped under 500 after losing that game. You have a really good team with high aspirations, and all of a sudden it's chaos within that team and clubhouse. Do you remember the feeling after the coaches were let go that day?
I think we were all surprised and shocked. I mean, especially in the middle of the season, and especially in the Subway Series, that you let 3 coaches go, and it was like, what the heck is going on here? And we were very surprised and shocked. But listen, as a player, we don't make those decisions. I'm sure we weren't playing well enough to help keep the coaches their jobs. I can't put words in Bobby's mouth, but I'm sure Bobby was surprised or wasn't too happy with it either, what the outcome of it was. That's for sure.
And the weird thing about that, Sweeney, as I mentioned, we dressed at Shea Stadium. So after the game at Yankee Stadium on Saturday, we drove back. And, I do all the press when we get back to Shea Stadium. And then I take my shower, and I come out of my shower, and 3 of my coaches are sitting there with this long look on their face. And I'm saying, hey, guys, don't worry. Gray skies are going to clear up. Put on a happy face. And they said, no happy faces for us, man. We just got fired. And I went, what? And, so it was a really weird situation, to say the least. And we won the next game. We went out there. The guys won the next game. We might have been sleepwalking a little. We might have been, I don't know, second guessing ourselves a little at the time. And, we wound up making the playoffs. So, if you're going to say whatever happens right, if it turns out right, then I guess that was the right thing. But they were 3 of my closest friends. And I'm going to tell you what, the longest night I ever had. My decision was whether I should leave with them. In the press conference the next day, when I was asked what we were going to do in the next 55 games that turned the team around, I did in that press conference at Yankee Stadium say we'd go 40-15. And to the credit of that team, in 55 games, we went 40-15. I don't know how the hell that happened, but it happened.
And Mike Piazza homers the next day off of Clemens. He does it again a month later in one of the games of the series. Bernie, you had the pleasure of hauling in one of the more famous Piazza drives a year later in 2000 to close out that World Series. But he's doing what Mike Piazza does, the things that get you to the Hall of Fame. He's smashing home runs in big spots. How scary was he to face on those Mets teams?
Oh, he was very scary. I think he was definitely one of the best hitters that they had in clutch situations. There is always something in the back of my head saying, just back up a little bit, a couple more steps. Just move move to your right a couple more steps because you know who's hitting.
Normally, when he hits the ball in the air, it doesn't come down. And when he hit that ball, and I'm surprised nobody had a camera on me, I just screamed no because I thought it was out of the ballpark. And then I look out there, and there's Bernie, wasn't even on the warning path, and caught the ball. And to this day, it's still a shock to me. In fact, they do have a video of Paul O'Neill's jerking his head when that ball was hit. Like he thought it was out too, and as luck would have it for us, it wasn't the case.
The storyline with Piazza and Roger Clemens really took a lot of the attention in 2000, but a lot of it was about leading up to what happened in 98 and 99. Piazza did really well against Roger Clemens. You're talking about 2 Hall of Fame caliber players and the epic battles they go through. Nelly, did everybody just kind of sit up on edge when these two met, knowing that the game could change in one direction or the other?
I would learn a lot from guys like Roger about how dominating they were and how they really needed to intimidate the batters. And I remember the series before when we played Seattle in 2000. He knocked down Alex Rodriguez. It seemed like he would pick out a guy in the lineup. He goes, you know what? I'm dusting this guy and I'll have the whole lineup. And he did. He wound up throwing a one-hitter. I think he gave up one hit that day. And he went 9 innings in the ALCS. And he did the same thing with the Mets. He says, okay, I'm going to pick out their best hitter and I'm putting them on their back. And he did. And that's how dominating this guy was. And he would take these red hots, this bomb that he would throw, and he would put it all over his body in the training room. And it would get into places that would probably fire him up. And that's why he was so fiery. I mean, we would walk in the training room, remember, Bernie? And he's down, he's got his underwear, he might be even naked, and he's putting all this stuff on with these rubber gloves. And I'm like, oh my God.
Mike kind of owned Roger. Roger could never get it in on Mike. He would raise his hands up, and let that ball that was inside, be a ball, and then he'd get something out over the plate. And he hit him hard. I mean, he not only hit Roger, he hit him hard, and it was amazing. And the time he hit him in the head, I think he was just trying to push him back or knock him down, but he was frustrated at the time because Mike had his number, and thank God he didn't get really injured at that time. But it was a conversation in that these are two of the greatest to play the game. We, the manager, the coaches, and the other players all wanted to see that confrontation. When it got a little, antsy, we wanted to see it more. And, it was really a spectacular thing until that crazy thing in the World Series, whatever that was. I'll never be able to explain that.
Yeah, the only thing I can tell you about that World Series thing with the bat was, from our side of the field, the bat, broken in half, and he picked it up and threw it off the field. And I think if Mike had known where the ball was, he probably wouldn't have run. The ball was foul, but he didn't know where it was. So, if he doesn't run, then the bat being thrown off the field wouldn't have been any big deal. But once he started running, then it became, look, he threw the bat at him. And I can tell you for a fact, Mel Stottlemyre, who was, not coaching with us because he was in the hospital with the multiple myeloma, was able to come out of the hospital and watch from my office the game. And George Steinbrenner was in there with him. And after that half inning, Roger went into the office to see Mel, and Mel told me, I wasn't in there, but Mel told me that he was crying on what had just transpired. But, pitchers who have all that passion, it leaks out all over the place. But that's what Mel told me, that he went in there and he was devastated with the result of what had happened, and that he was crying.
That was news to me. I didn't know that. I didn't know.
I want to take you guys back now to what is probably the best game, July 10th, 1999, at Shea Stadium. This is a crazy back and forth game with a bunch of home runs. Piazza hits one that might be the farthest I've ever seen hit. O'Neill hits a pair. Posada hits a pair. And the game ends on Matt Franco's walk-off single against Mariano Rivera in a year and a time when Mariano is probably his most unhittable, his most untouchable, and Franco beats him. Johnny, this is one of the most insane back and forth games I'm sure you've ever seen, definitely between the Yankees and the Mets. What are your lasting memories of that crazy affair that day at Shea?
We finally got to Mariano, that's for sure. But no, hitting all those home runs. I remember Mike hit that home run. I think it landed on the 10th outside of left field. And then the home runs would be hitting left and right. For a guy like Matty to come off the bench and contribute, it was a good for him and good for us.
He wanted to face Mariano. he thought he had it figured out. Remember, Johnny? Oh, he would come in at practice. I got my hands in. I'm just going to throw my hands in. I know the ball's going to be there. I'm just going to move my hands out of the way. He's not going to jam me. And as it turned out, he got up in that game, and he'll tell you, he got jammed. He broke his back, but the ball went just far enough for us to win that game, and it was a spectacular win.
I've got one more for everybody, and I'll let you all answer. And Joe, I'm going to start with you. 25 years of Subway Series games between the Yankees and Mets. Has any of the luster come off? Do you still think it matters? Do you still think there's an aura about this series between these two teams?
I think it's gotten worn out a little bit. I really do. I think once we faced each other, especially once we faced each other in the World Series and then tried to, duplicate that's pretty tough.
Oh, I hope Billy Epler could take some of that Yankee magic and turn the Mets into a World Series team so there could be another Subway Series before I leave. It was spectacular when we had that chance, and I hope the Mets and the Yankees can do it again.
The amount of times that we play each other during the season, I think it takes a little bit from the anticipation to having these big games. They do lose a little bit, but they still entertaining to me, and they still mean a lot to the fans. So I'm good for them.
I think playing each other 6 times during the year. Just think if we didn't play each other in the interleague and then we got into the World Series, how big that would have been. I mean, it was big, so big, but I'm talking it would have exploded.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of interleague play anymore. I agree with Joe and Bernie, and even what Johnny said as far as you remember '96 when we didn't have the interleague play and we got into the World Series and we're playing the Braves. We had no idea what they were about, and I like that idea. I wish they would go back to the old schedule. Everybody's playing each other the same, and then all of a sudden the World Series you meet the National League for the first time, and if that happens, that the Mets and the Yankees meet in the World Series again, I think it'll be outstanding.
Well, hopefully one day we will have a special World Series again that New York can get to revel in. Yankees and Mets, they look like they're both eager to get back, and maybe one day we'll have it again. And when it happens, we'll have you back on to tell all the same stories. For Joe Torre, Bernie Williams, Jeff Nelson from the New York Yankees, Bobby Valentine, John Franco from the New York Mets, I'm Sweeney Murdy. Thanks, everybody, for making us feel like we never left.